Hey Dave, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Scott. Nice. Thanks for having me, man. Don't believe everything you hear on these podcasts, by the way. I make shit up.
Yeah, no, for sure. This one's been a long time coming. We had some scheduling conflicts, but uh, I myself, I'm super excited about this one. I've been following your journey, and it's always fun to speak to first responders first and foremost, but people that I walk the same walk you walked, fellow firefighters. So it's definitely going to be an exciting episode. So we were kind of chatting before we hit the record button. I know your backstory, but for all of our friends and listeners here today, give them the goods, tell them who you are and what you're about.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief. Only I usually don't. Um, I, like you, have a funny accent. I was an immigrant to the States. I came from England back in '86, and I was chasing my first wife, who was an American. I met her over there in London. I was in school in London. She was on a teaching program from Indiana, but she was originally from New York. Long story short, we were dating. Seemed like a really good idea at 20 years old to emigrate, get married. And because her brother-in-law was in the Air Force, I was going to join the Air Force. So imagine that one, right? I'm standing in a pub garden with my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I'm going to emigrate, get married, and join the United States Air Force. And he looks at me and he goes, No, you're not. I go, Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Bing, bang, boom. The next thing you know, we're just rolling around. And crazy to think of those days. Anyway, I landed in New York City, and I fell in love with the States. I fell in love with the speed of the culture. I fell in love with just the chaos. Like I've always been attracted to chaos, right? If it's chaotic, if it's dangerous, if it's got an edge to it, if it's different, I'm into it, right? Anyway, I bounced around a little bit. That marriage didn't last long. Moved down to Wheeling, by God, West Virginia. You're going to take this kid from London, right? You plunk him in New York. That's good. It's a big city, right? Fast moving people, attitude. I'm good with that. And then you pick him up and you plunk him down in Wheeling, West Virginia, in the middle of the Rust Belt. And it was all beer bellies, ball caps, and chewing tobacco. No disrespects to my Southern friends, but I truly was an alien in an alien nation when I moved down there. It's crazy. First buck I earned down there was tending bar in a place called Michelangelo's, which was in Shadyside, Ohio, a shit kicking town. And true story, I'm standing behind the bar, and a guy asked for a screwdriver. So I reached down under the bar to the toolbox. I said to him, I said, "You want a Phillips or a flathead?" And he thought I was just being a wise guy. And he said, "No, it's vodka and orange." I said, "Why don't you ask for a vodka and orange, you donkey?" Bing, bang, boom. That turned into a fight. That was one of many jobs that I ended up losing. But in January of 1990, I got sober. Up until that point, my life had been pretty chaotic, and it really was because once I started drinking, I couldn't find a good reason to not drink, which kind of ties into my firefighting service. I needed the edge, man. I needed some bullshit. I needed some paramedicine. I needed some car accidents. I needed some wackos and weirdos and flippers and floppers around me. I needed that edge. Otherwise, I was pretty discontent. But anyway, I got sober. I got married for a second time. I moved up to the Boston market where I've been now for what 30 plus years. And a buddy of mine was on the fire department, and I was working construction, retail, security, right? So we used to call it pot roast police, right? Because I'd be retail security, and that's when cops was just coming out on TV, and it was bad boys, what you gonna do, right? And I'm like, wow, yeah, it's me, man. I'm gonna be 5-0, and I'm testing for police exams. And a buddy of mine who was on the Salem, Massachusetts Fire Department, Ray, he says to me, "Why don't you test for the fire department?" I'm like, "I don't know if I want to be a firefighter. I want to catch bad guys." He's like, "You should try it out. You should give it a go." And I took multiple tests, right? I'm testing in Florida for police department. I'm testing for fire department in Massachusetts where I lived. And straight up, two cards came in the mail same day. One was for the fire department in Lynn, Massachusetts, and the other one was for Miami PD. I'm like, I didn't know which way to go. And I took the fire department job, not because I wanted one over the other. It was logistics. I already lived in Massachusetts. And that's how I started, brother. I got on the job. The year that we tested, it was a civil service exam in Massachusetts. And so I got on in 96. And the civil service exam at that time, they had restructured it where your written exam and your physical exam was weighted differently. So the physical ability was like 80 or 85% of your final score. And the other 15, 20% was your written exam. So I was a bull back then, dude. So I was all set with the physical stuff. The mental stuff, I'm not that smart, but I did okay. I ended up with a blended score of like 100
Yeah,
and
totally.
99 or whatever. And I got offered the job, so I became a fireman. So yeah, that's how I went from being a kid in London to a firefighter in Lynn, Massachusetts. Lynn, the city is thin. You never come out the way you went in, right in the middle of the hood. Yeah,
Okay,
it's good.
so that was 1996. You entered the fire department. How long were you a
Yeah.
firefighter for?
So I was a fireman for 16 years. And the fire service and the union structure is kind of interesting, right? I got
Yeah,
on the fire department. We were a class of how many of us was it? I think it was either 28 or 38. I can't remember. We were a big class. And this was before you had to have official academy under you, firefighter one, firefighter two. We didn't have any of that stuff. They gave us boots and a helmet, and we hung out in the back of Broadway Firehouse, and they taught us how to squirt water, climb ladders, and try not to kill each other or anybody else around us. And I'm going to be frank with you, brother. If the fire department gave me financial freedom, I probably would have still been there. The bullshit, I didn't like it. I wasn't a good employee. I would like to say I was a good fireman. If you asked a couple of guys who were on my engine company, I think they tell you Dave got your back. I didn't pussy out. I'd be the first one in and the last one out. But the politics and just the BS of that world, telegraph. They used to say telegraph, tell a firefighter, right?
100%.
Like
Absolutely.
if you, you know what I mean? Like if you don't give them information, they'll make shit up, and it's usually going to be negative.
Yeah.
And
And
that, that
we'll
needling, it was tough.
we'll unpack that when we get through the chronological story of Dave here. So
Yeah.
1996, you're a rookie firefighter, you're a young guy. When did the real estate aspect kick off for you? I know,
Yeah.
I know the answer, but how did real estate come to fruition for you?
Yeah. It's, so those first, say, 10 years of the fire department, they were good years, man. I had a kid on the job with us, kid by the name of Sean Curley, who was a lunatic, but he was a hell of a carpenter, right? And I don't know how it is with you guys. I assume it's the same. We all got second jobs, and most of us are, slinging nails or plumbing or electricians or, and Curly was looking for guys, and I started to learn the basics of construction. I was never a good finish carpenter, but if you gave me a sledgehammer and a a sawzall and a skill saw, I could at least do a little bit of framing. And the big problem I had is that coming from a blue collar background in England, my financial literacy scores were -10, right? I was a financial literate donkey. And what I mean by that was I knew how to spend money, but I didn't know how to manage money. I knew how to spend money. I didn't know how to keep money. I knew how to spend money. I didn't know how to work money. Like I had no concept around that at all. The only thing I was ever taught is if you want to make more money, then you got to trade more time. And for a guy like me who got himself into debt pretty quick, I was 2008 and 9, I'm losing my house because I'd refinanced it 3 times because the scumbags in the mortgage industry who took advantage of us said, you're a firefighter, you can refinance your house, you can get out 110, 120%, go in a 3-year adjustable rate, don't worry about it, real estate always goes up, you can refinance if you can't pay your bills, blah, blah, blah. And I'm hurting, dude. and my marriage went down the shitter. I was losing my house, and that was the closest I came to picking up a drink in all those years. So around 2008, 9, stuff is not going well, and I was kind of like pounding on the steering wheel of my pickup truck, and I figured I'm gonna wrestle with God a little bit. Like I got some issues, you know what I mean? Like I don't lie, I don't cheat, I don't steal. I think I'm a pretty decent guy, and everything's turning to shit. And I'm asking for some guidance. And a commercial came over on the radio, and it was Teach Me Foreclosure, a free 1.5 hour seminar coming in your neck of the woods, right? And there's a couple of times in my life where divine intervention has popped in. A couple of times in a building when your ass is grass and you're like praying and you get an answer. And then this time, and I had met a couple of investors while I was digging ditches working construction. They had a better attitude than I did. Their clothes were nicer than mine. Their cars were nicer than mine. And they knew something I didn't. And it was kind of like an epiphany for me, a moment of clarity where I went, if I can get the knowledge, I know I got the balls, right? Like my firefighting background showed me that with repetition and drilling and a good team, as firefighters, we can do some pretty crazy stuff, right? As paramedics, we can genuinely intervene and save lives. Like we got some pretty cool powers, if you will. So that was where it started. I went to a seminar, and I heard for the first time in my life things around finances that I had never heard before. You don't hear it sitting in a firehouse while everybody's freaking complaining about everybody else, right? You don't have financial literacy classes in the firehouse. And I started on that journey, and I believed what these people were telling me. They told me that I could wholesale real estate. I could control a property with a purchase and sales agreement and sell the purchase and sales agreement to another investor. And one of the first deals, if not the first deal I did, I made $5,000 on a wholesale transaction. We'll say 2009, 10, right? Everything was shit. Nobody wanted to go anywhere near real estate back then. And I wholesaled a bank-owned property because I got some intelligence and some knowledge, and I was actually doing what I was learning rather than just talking about it. And I remember I walked out of this attorney's office, and I had a check in my hand for $5,000. It was a cold night, misty, manky, dank night up here in the Boston market. And I step out, it's like 5 o'clock, 5:30, it's dark. I got a check in my hand for $5,000. And at that time in my life, my take-home pay from the fire department, I'm not exaggerating, Scott, was somewhere around $250 to $350 a week, because I had child support, union dues, all the other shit that came out of there. I got a check in my hand for $5,000. And I'm like, wow. I was waiting for the cops to pull up and arrest me, right? Like, this can't be legal. So that's where I started around 2009, 10, after going to seminars, and I just kept rolling from there, brother. Just kept going.
Okay, so I'm going to digress here before we continue with your journey. So for those listening, in the States, it's a bit different than what we see in Canada with the wholesale market. It's not as, for lack of better words, as easy inside of Canada as it is in the United States. So we won't really unpack that today. Just keep in mind, we'll leave the wholesale thing alone. Dave had mentioned there, and I think it's like in the fire service, we see it every single day at work. I can't speak to other first responder professions because I'm not in it as intimately as I am with fire departments, but no one teaches financial literacy. Like you talk to any young rookie that we hire nowadays, like they don't know their ass from grass when it comes to mortgages and leveraged investing. Like there's no education component of that in school, let alone in adulthood. And as first responders, we're just conditioned, like show up to work, do your job well, and you'll be rewarded on the back end with a pension. Now, in Canada, our pensions, they haven't been susceptible. Our pensions haven't been exposed like they have been in some states, and we haven't seen that. We've never really had them come into question for whatever reason. But I know in the States, as first responders, and I was speaking with a firefighter from Baltimore, they were watching Detroit's pension go bankrupt, and now they're worried, right? So it's interesting to see and hear you talk about the epiphany you had leaving that lawyer's office with that check for $5,000, thinking like, holy fuck, is this legal? Like, can I do what I'm doing? And I know I speak to so many first responders daily, and they're constantly just trading time for money. They're picking up that extra overtime shift at work just to keep the lights on their home, let alone not even get ahead, or, you know, they're not even saving to take their kids to Disneyland or whatever it is. They're just trying to keep their neck above waters. And so you had this moment, you had the $5,000 check. Did this snowball for you, or did it like?
Yeah, here's what I called that check. I gave it a like a classification. That was my shut up check. That was the check that I showed to everybody, including my brothers in the firehouse who said I couldn't do it. I showed them the check and I went, shut up, right? That's a shut up check. That's a you can't tell me I can't do anything check. And for me, it was I used the term epiphany. It was like an eye-opening experience to realize that everything I had known up until that point wasn't a case of right or wrong. It was left or right, right? It's just a different perspective. Why is it I was given one set of rules and regulations, and then I find out later on that there are different rules and regulations? And I'll talk about the retirement because it's the hook, right? The retirement is the hook. In America, we also have the 401k program, right? The 401k is the number one retirement vehicle in the United States of America. On average, 75 to 80% of the population is some kind of 401k program with their employers. And what's interesting is that 401k program, and also my retirement as a firefighter, was sold to me as the be all and end all for financial freedom, right? You're going to work 25, 30 years, you're going to retire, everything's going to be beautiful. But when you look at the external forces on our retirement programs, that changes the perspective altogether. When I left the fire department, after 16 years, there was about, I want to say, 250 to 300,000 in the account. And half of that went to my ex-wife because she was entitled to it. It was a great state of Massachusetts. You know, my ex-wife was entitled to 50% of my pension. So I had about 160, 180,000. And I knew the guy down at City Hall. He was a friend of mine, the comptroller, a guy by the name of Ralph Cronin. And I'm going down, I've quit the fire department. I'm going to take my retirement money out of the account. Oh my God, nobody does that. What the hell is wrong with you? You can't take the money out. You only ever put money in. So I'm standing there and Ralph looks at me and he goes, you sure you know what you're doing? I go, yeah. He goes, Dave, I know you, brother. I love you. You're my friend. I ran the calculations for you. He said, you take this money out, you can't put it back in again, number one. He goes, and number two, you're going to be giving up $280 a month when you're 65 years old if you take this money out. And I looked at him and I'm like, you don't know what I've learned because I got some financial education. I took that money, I put it into a self-directed retirement account, an IRA, we call them. And it allows me to now direct those retirement funds. And I just put them straight away into businesses and real estate transactions and grew my retirement that way. So you don't know what you don't know. Who are the 5 people that you're hanging around with the most? Because if it's 5 miserable pricks in a firehouse, guess what? That's what you're going to be. You're going to be the common denominator of the 5 people you hang around with the most. You know, and today I don't hang around. And look, it's not a moral judgment. It's an education. That's all it is. One of the guys from my engine company is now the chief of the department. The other guy from the engine company is now a captain on the department. I love those guys. There's only really 2 guys left, and we still connect every now and again. I just went to my buddy's daughter's wedding a few months ago. And I look at Skip, who's now the chief of the department, running a $25 million budget. And I'm like, are you happy? Are you happy? He goes, no, I hate it. I hate this job. I said, then quit. quit. He goes, no, I can't. Like, you know, the masochism of the career choices. But he looks at me and he says, I can't do what you do. I go, what do you mean? He goes, how much is the job you're doing right now? I said, it's a $26 million project. I just signed a loan for $19 million. He goes, I couldn't do that. I go, you're doing it anyway. You're just managing the city's money. I said, this is my success or failure. You know what I mean? So that journey of taking back control, and that's the hardest thing, I think. You know, we're sold a story. Well, I can't say we. I was sold a story. You know, my father said, do your 8 and hit the gate. Work hard. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Don't steal. Be a man among men, a worker among workers. Dig them ditches. You know what I mean? And that was because that was what was given to him. But, you know, financial literacy comes with a price, whether you realize it or not, right? What do you pay for missed opportunities? So it's been an interesting trip for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. I think like in Canada, like, and I'm not saying that the pensions aren't phenomenal and it's not a good way of living. Like, you know, you put in your 30 years, you collect your 8, 9, $10,000 a month on a pension. Like that's good money, but is that enough for the lifestyle you want in retirement? Maybe, maybe not. I think there's a select group or select subsegment of first responders that they want more, and the 10K is not going to feed it. So before we talk about your exit from the fire department, you're wholesaling properties. I'm guessing it's starting to snowball. You got more than one on the go at a time. What did the next couple of years look like, and how did flipping Boston come to fruition? And this is the leads buried in this one. Flipping Boston's going to come out in this discussion, and I think everyone needs to hear the story.
So yeah, I wholesaled a couple of houses to 2009, 10. I get a little taste, and I told you I learned my industry from the seminar world. And it's kind of interesting. Long story short, I was at once you get into that seminar world, you know, you're getting emails all the time from all over the place, right? Everyone's a guru. Everybody knows everything. Look at me. Come give me some of your money and your time. Blah blah blah. Learn this, learn that. And there was he was a firefighter. He was a captain from LA, and he was in the seminar space as an educator, as a guru. And he was retired from the from LA Fire, and he was on stage and he was selling websites, right? Your buyer's website, your seller's website, and a money-raising website. And he was doing this hour and a half pitch in amongst all these other speakers during the course of this 1 day or 2 day event. And when he got up on the stage, he was freaking horrible, dude. Like he had no presence, he had no command of the audience, he didn't understand how to read a room. And what ruined it for me was his comedic timing was dog shit. It was horrible. Like he didn't understand how to engage and get some joviality into what he's doing. The same from stage: watch him laugh, watch him cry, watch him buy. And he was trying to do these things and he couldn't get it done. What I didn't tell you is when I was in London, I did some stuff. I was, stand-up comic in some pubs and clubs, and I was a bit of a performer, shall we say. So I went up to this guy, Scott, for real, and he's like the big guru. And I'm like, yeah, my name's Dave. I'm a firefighter in the Boston market, blah, 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 blah. He goes, oh, yeah. I go, I got to tell you something, bud. Your comedy sucks. And he looks at me and he's like, well, I go, your comedy sucks. You're laughing at your own punchlines before you even tell the punchline to us. You got to let us enjoy the joke. And he says to me, who are you? I go, Dave, I'm a firefighter north of Boston. You're a firefighter, my brother. You know what I mean? I'm pulling the firefighter card. And he says, and you did stand-up comedy? I go, yeah. He goes, you're my new comedy coach. He said, I'm going to fly you down to Florida. I'm going to pay you $1,000, I think it was, to critique my 3-day boot camp that I'm running. I'm like, this guy's full of shit. But he wasn't. And what he did was he opened up the doors to the seminar world for me. And once I got on the other side of the curtain, I ended up getting involved with guys who are on a trajectory. Again, the 5 people you hang around with. I'm now on the other side with all of these, real estate guys and internet marketing guys and stock guys and business guys and, online business guys. And there was a guy called Russell Brunson. And Russell Brunson was the founder of
ClickFunnels.
ClickFunnels. Thank you. So Russell Brunson was in this group, Gary Vaynerchuk, these other guys that were there. And I started to change, right? My outlook changed, my mentality changed, my awareness of opportunity changed. And Brunson sent an email to me. I wish I still had it. And he's like, this was 2010, 11. Real estate was still shit. And he says, Dave, you're a funny bastard. He said, you should interview for this TV show. This production company is looking for house flippers. He said, I know you're doing maybe 2 or 3, 4 a year, whatever it was. So he sends me this link, and it was an online application. And it was vanilla, brother. It was really dry. Name of your company. How many people on your team? How many flips do you do? Right? I'm like, this is boring as shit. So being around these marketing guys, I had learned that you have to separate yourself from the pack, man. So I'm applying for a TV show, and I just loaded the application with profanity. Loaded it with profanity. Name of the company was Go F Yourself LLC. Tell me about you guys. Shut the F up. Just get on a plane, train, or an automobile. Don't call me. Just come to Boston. I'll show you how it's done. Blah, blah, blah. I flip houses the same way I fight fires. When everybody else goes running out, we go running in. We got balls the size of King Kong, blah, 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 blah. And I hit send, and the phone rang 15 minutes, and it's 212 area code out of New York. And I pick up the phone. I said, I thought I told you not to call me and to just get on a plane. Click. And I hung up the phone. I got nothing to lose, right? I got nothing to lose. He calls back, kid's laughing his balls off. He says, you're either a genius or a lunatic. I said, what's the difference? And they came up, shot a couple of little demo reels. They liked the dynamic. And the note from A&E TV was, we like that big English guy. We think he could get pretty angry. We'd like to see more of that. So that was where it started. We did 3 episodes. We figured we'd be one and done. We got the highest rating for the Saturday morning slot that they had ever had. There was like 1.5 million, 2 million viewers or something. And then they turned around and said, give us 15 more episodes. And that was it, man. That was when my life changed. I remember going to the chief of the department, who used to be my captain. So, he was one of the guys. Only this guy's got promoted now. And the production company went to the chief and they said, one of your firefighters, Dave Seymour, he's part of a reality TV show, flipping houses, taking shitty homes and putting them back into the community. We'd like to incorporate the fire department into that story. What would we need to do to make that happen? The chief turns around and he says, we don't endorse firefighters working on the outside. We want nothing to do with that at all.
Yeah.
Now, this is the same prick that was laying rug on his 4 days off, right? When he was a captain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like the hypocrisy of that stuff. It just hurt. Like I would have given as much as I could to my brothers in positivity. But when you go to give somebody a gift, then they just slap it down. So that was how Flipping Boston started.
Think of the goodwill that would have done for the department had it been on a national television show, let alone like I've watched the series. I think it's like phenomenal. And you gotta remember, like when this show aired, it was at like the beginning of all these like development shows. Like we have HGTV up here, and we have like, I can't remember what it's called, but Chip and Joanna Gaines in Texas. Texas. That show was like it was huge up here, and like you were ahead of that curve, right? And you can imagine that the royalties or the exposure or just the sheer goodwill that department would have gotten from just showing you like in uniform or showing you, with your brothers at a call or something. Who knows? But we won't spend too much time on the what if. So you're a major TV star. You're still a firefighter. I'm more curious just from my own personal interest. What was that like on the job? Like, what was the conversation around the hall around you being this TV star and at on TV?
you 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 know as well as I do, it was a challenge. It was
Yeah,
a challenge. Look, man, we got a saying in the Boston market, right? If you put 20 lobsters in a bucket and one tries to climb out of the bucket, the other 19 lobsters are going to pull it back down, right? Out of, I was on a 230, 240 man department. I'll just leave it at this. Today, there's only three guys that I talk to, right?
yeah. No,
I've been to funerals, I've been to promotions since leaving the fire department, and the conversations are always cordial. But at the end of the day, it's like, oh, look at you, you're the big TV star. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's that kind of shit. And it's like, I didn't go looking for it. I was a financial donkey. It
yeah,
landed in my lap, grace of God. I executed on it. And, you know, I ran into a guy recently and he got on maybe a year after I did. So he's right around the corner from retirement. And he's like, Davey, what are you doing? I said, I'm doing development work in Florida. I got about, X amount of millions in the pipeline. Things are good. And the first thing out of his mouth is hook a brother up. I mean, what do you mean hook a brother up? What does that mean? You know what I mean? What, you want to move to Florida and go do some framing for me? Or you just want me to write you a check, or you don't want to go through all of the fears, the doubts, the challenges that I went through. You don't want to make any of your own mistakes. You just want all of mine for free. You know what I mean? So it's like that kind of shit just fucking rubs me the wrong way sometimes. But each to their own. I don't compare my insides with other people's outsides, right? And I
yeah.
ask that they don't do the same thing. Just to thine own self be true. So it was a challenge. We'll leave it at that. You know what I mean? It wasn't easy.
Yeah, for sure. And you said it there a couple of times. I don't know how the actual quote goes, but you're the sum of all five, or some of the
Yeah.
five closest people. And I think, for anyone that wants to do something that's outside of the conventional punch a clock,
Mm,
come to work the overtime, you're gonna have struggles trying to get that positive reinforcement from the crowds you're in. That you need to
hmm
remove
hmm
yourself from that situation and
hmm
surround yourself with like-minded individuals or people who see it as oh, Dave wanted to, flip houses. I think it's a good idea. Or, there's some reservations, but it still could be a good
mm
idea. And I love
mm.
it. So you had this soapbox to stand on after Flipping Boston aired. You did it for, I think it was what, 4 or 5 seasons it ran for.
Yeah, well, they call it 3 seasons, but it was 29 episodes. So,
So a good run.
almost, yeah, it's a good run. It was a good run. The only reason it stopped was it had some IP legal challenges around it. And A&E and the production company lost the rights to produce Flipping Boston, Flipping Vegas,
Yeah.
Flipping. So they lost that. It had an IP attached to it, an intellectual property patent. And the guy who started it sued him. He won, made 6 mil, so we couldn't do the episodes anymore. And once you fall out of vogue like that and you're not cool,
Yeah. Yeah.
it passes pretty quick.
Okay. So Flipping Boston winds down. How long after that show ended did you pull the plug on fire department?
I pulled the plug while I was still filming.
Oh, okay.
Um, this is going to sound arrogant, and I don't mean it to. It's just a statement of fact. It cost me way too much money to go to the firehouse. The there was there was an acceptable structure around our shift work, right? You could have a guy cover you. If you needed some time off and you needed to do something else, a guy could cover your shift. Guys would pay guys for their shifts. It was loose. And the attention that was on me, those rules and regulations or loose rules and regulations didn't apply anymore.
Yeah.
And guys were intentionally going out to hurt me. And I'm like, all right, that's enough of this shit. And I looked at the finances. When you can flip a house in the Boston market and make, 40, 50 grand on the back end, how many of those do you need to do before the fire department doesn't become a financially viable, place to be in? For me, I moved in different circles, and opportunities are different, man. I was asked to be an educator. I was asked to be in the seminar world, and all my expenses would be paid. And, you could make anywhere from $2,000 to 50 grand being on a stage for 3 days. So that world changed dramatically. Like the expectation of returns and the expectation of income changed. So the fire department, again, if it was financially, I love the job, dude. I love it. You commented on my lid over there. Like every burn on that leather lid has a story attached to it that I don't forget ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
The melted Legos that used to be in the helmet to represent my wife and my kids, and just that culture was so important to me. But the money wasn't there to make it work, so I had to leave, and with a heavy heart, to be frank with you. But I hear an engine go by, I still kind of like. Here's what's weird. I digress a little bit. Here's what's fucking weird. The tones in our firehouse. So if we worked in a double house, there was a different tone for the ladder company and the engine company it would go over. But on occasions, there are sounds in our community that are similar to the tones in the firehouse. And I might be somewhere, a sidewalk or in a restaurant, and if they're doing an announcement in the restaurant, bing, bang, boom, and they got some kind of sound, they say anything like, I sit up straight. Yeah. My heart rate goes up. You know what I mean? So it's like that culture's ingrained in me. But I left. I had to leave from there. And my first year, again, this is not ego, it's just fact. The first year that I was out of the fire department, I paid more in taxes that year than I had earned the prior year in the fire department. I paid more in taxes than I did in earnings the year before in the fire department. So that's how dramatic my financial situation was.
So I hear you 100%, and I always say this. Like I've been speaking to like a lot of colorful first responders who have had to exit their chosen fields because of similar reasons, and they're not bragging, they're just spitting facts, like you said. And it's not us on a soapbox saying it's not smart to be a first responder, you should leave your job. We're not saying that. And the whole intent of this conversation is just to show people that there is more to life than just the pension, and the pension may not be enough, that there's other callings. And again, like I'm not sitting here saying that you need to go get a side hustle and find a way to make more money, but it all stems to what you want to do in life and how you want to get there. And for sure, you're right. It would be a very tough decision for you to have to leave what you love for so many years to go do the uncertain. And obviously it paid off for you. So we're going to kind of speed up the timeline here.
Yeah.
Present day, 2023. Yeah. What's Dave Seymour doing?
What is Dave Seymour doing? So it's interesting. For me, there was a progression from wholesaling single family houses, making a check, single family flips, making a bigger check, to go through some phases around a hard money lending business, private lending business. I've ran coaching and education programs. And in just pre-COVID, I just launched a joint venture with a hard money lending company out of California. And we built a machine of a business for hard money loans. So non-QM loans, non-owner occupied loans, investor loans. We had about 17 million in the pipe, and we were working off of a line of credit from New York with a company called Brixton Capital. It was a $50 million line of credit. We would originate the loans. The loans would be funded by the line of credit, and then that loan was then sold to the secondary markets in New York so that we could replenish the credit line with Brixton. So it was a beautiful, beautiful business plan. We'd rip a couple of points, some spread, and it was a really nice, viable business until COVID showed up. So I'm 30, 90 days into building this business. COVID shows up, shut down my business in 24 hours. I got 1,700 square feet of office space, 9 loan originators, and I'm done. Like Brixton Capital shut down. Paused for a couple of weeks, didn't cry like a baby, spoke to a couple of guys that I admire and respect in the industry of real estate and finance. Spoke to my now partner, a gentleman by the name of Walter Novicki. Walter Novicki, also first responder in the sense that he was Major Walter Novicki, Special Forces, ran an elite group of, maybe 20 guys who can't tell you what they did, because if they did, they really would have to kill you.
Yeah.
And, I looked at Walter, and he had been in real estate for 30 years. He's a little bit older than me, a couple of years older than me. I'm like, what's next, brother? And he said, look, man, I've been doing large syndicated deals in his market, which was the Florida market, ever since 2009-10. And he said, I do them one at a time. He said, do you think there's an opportunity to raise more money and go bigger on it? He said he considered there being opportunities off of the back end of COVID. So that's what we did. We started Freedom Venture Investments. We're a boutique private equity firm. We've raised anywhere between, I would say we're probably around 75 or 100 million now in the past 4 years. Put that capital to work in various projects, either development, pre-development work, land acquisition, repositioning, acquisition of existing structures. So today I focus on raising capital for what we call in the States accredited investors. You have a similar stature in Canada, where only certain investors can invest in certain assets. I'm in finance, man. I talk about waterfall structures and cash on cash returns and internal rates of return and equity multiples. And, I go golfing with guys who golf a lot better than I do, but their paychecks or their bank accounts are a little stiffer than mine. And it's pretty amazing. And here's where it's at. And I can kind of wrap it up like this. I used to earn $200 for an overtime in a firehouse. That's what I would make for an overtime. And I would pray that the phone would ring and it'd be my turn to earn $200. A year ago, 2.2 million was wired into one of my business accounts by a family office that has 2 billion in assets under management, because they like what we do in our market and they want to come play in our sandbox with us and be a finance partner. So that didn't take long, Scott. That less than 15 years from praying for $200 for an overtime to people having faith in you to wire you 2.2 million. You know what I mean? So that's what we do today. I raise money, really. I'm out begging for pennies so that we can build buildings. It's kind of interesting.
No, and we said before we hit the record button today that it's funny to watch first responders, how they transition and evolve from being a single rental property owner, and they scale it. And I think what I'm learning here is more and more podcast episodes we get in the bank here is that first responders are executors and they're driven. So if you give them an objective, they're going to do what it takes at all costs to execute. And they all have like horror stories. And I'm sure like you said in 08, 09, when you were about to lose your house, that was a defining moment in your character. And, it's gotten you from that $200 overtime shift to that $2.2 million wire transfer. So I always love these conversations. And there you have it, folks. This is Dave Seymour, who was a firefighter making $200 on an overtime shift to raising multiples of millions of dollars in capital. So there's the real story and the transition from where you started as an immigrant to what you're doing now. And it's just remarkable to hear, man. It really is a true story. And it's fun to be on this side of things interviewing you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me here. It's
no worries.
It's just process. It's choice, right? It's choice. And I'll end with this, if I may. and you just hit on it. Give me a target. Give me a target. Incident commander, take the inch and 3/4 to the second floor. Sweep the second floor. If there's anybody up there, make sure that the rescue company knows and get them out of there. You know, get like clear direction. Give me a target and I'll execute. And it's the same in business. If I got something to hunt for and aim for, watch out, because that's the way we are. It's the way we're wired. We're going to go get it done. So
For
you
sure.
can too, right?
Hey, Dave, before I let you go, will you hang around for our responder roundup?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, so it's 6 quick questions for our listeners to get to know the real Dave Seymour. So question number 1, what's one book that you've read in the last 12 months that you'd recommend?
Rules, Rules, Rules of a Knight, Knight. A story about a knight in Cornwall before he goes into a night of battle. And it talks about being a man, being a good man, being a friend among friends. Just a really good book on the personal development side.
Okay. Question number 2, if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That's not an easy one to answer. I've been trying to not eat carbs. It's got to be pizza, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if it doesn't matter if I die fat and unhealthy, it's got to be pizza. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Favorite quote?
Favorite quote. Speak calmly, but carry a big stick. I kind of butchered the quote, but it's Churchill, right? Just carry a big stick. Know when to wield it.
Okay. Favorite movie or TV show of all time?
Goodfellas.
Not Flipping Boston?
No, Goodfellas.
Okay. Favorite city to travel to in your home state?
Boston.
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed not to go there too. Okay, final question for you, and I'll let you get out of here. One thing you've purchased for under $1,000 that has had a positive impact in your life, either professionally or personally.
Under $1,000, impact in my life positively. This is going to sound goofy. Podcasting equipment, a good camera and a good microphone.
Yeah,
Really, it really does. It allows you to meet some really cool people.
perfect.
So I would say that.
Okay, Dave. Again, very thankful you came on today and shared your story with our listeners.
Appreciate it.